Oh, hello everyone. I hope you're all well. It's Susie from Esoteric Trading Solutions, just doing a market report overnight for the 10th of November 2017. There is a lot to cover, so I thought I'd just do a quick video on that. The alts were generally up, so obviously the alternative coins were generally up to Bitcoin. Bitcoin was down 0.51%. It is hitting a wall at 7,500, and I do think technically it looks like it can come down. Don't forget everyone got long Bitcoin on the basis that the fork was going to happen, that SegWit SegWit Witness 2 times was going to happen, and that's been pulled off. So there will be a lot of longs holding Bitcoin, and maybe they're weak longs. So if this market does go down, and what I mean by weak longs is that if the market doesn't rally, they're obviously going to cave in and start selling their Bitcoin. So I do think Bitcoin can come down. Bitcoin Cash is doing very well. That was up 5% overnight. BT1 and BT2, those are both down. BT2 particularly, which was SegWit 2, has been down. It was down 85% yesterday, don't forget, and it's down 13% today. So it has been a massive move, and it probably looks like it will still go down. Ripple was about the same. It's very annoying with Ripple because it's actually underperforming the other alts as well, and yet it's got basically the best technology, so it's really quite frustrating. There are a lot of Ripple haters out there for some reason that try to put the coin down, which I find really surprising. I just need a glass of water, but it is annoying. So I'm still holding Ripple in my medium-term portfolio, which is my 2-year portfolio, and I'm also doing it as a trade as well, because I think, buying Ripple anywhere under 20 cents or even 21 now is still good buying, really good buying. IOTA's been up quite a bit, and that was up 16% to 5480, and it does look fairly good technically, but it is today hitting a wall around that 56 cents. Dash was up 4% to 328. I do think Dash as a privacy coin is well overpriced, and I think there's better opportunity like Zencash. Again, Monero, it was also a privacy coin, but not quite private, because governments can find out. There was evidence, there was a case a couple of years ago where governments found out that someone was actually holding Monero, and they had to disclose it, and apparently they took the coins off them. So Monero and Dash are not that private, because governments can still find out who owns the coin, which is interesting. So, I'm not actually a believer in either of those coins. Zencash, I am, because Zencash has end-to-end encryption, where the other two coins don't have end-to-end encryption. And Nero was up to $1.90, 1.9% to 31,916. Nero is hitting a wall at $32. I do think the alts are still reasonably good buying. I did point that out over a week ago, and I actually went into the alts a week ago. My investment portfolio, as I said, is Ripple, and I'm buying Ripple anything under 20 cents. I picked up some at 0.1778, so I was pretty happy with that. That's for my my medium-term portfolio of 2 to 5 years, and that's not a trading portfolio. But in saying that, I will trade Ripple as well. So if it gets below certain levels, say 20 cents or below 21, I'll be a buyer. I keep getting stopped out of my Ethereum trades, which is really annoying. I've been stopped out 3 times, and so I've got this rule: 3 times you're stopped out, you've got to stay away. I've been selling Ethereum because they've still got problems with their technology, their wallet and their multiple signature wallet, and essentially about 280 million US of Ethereum is tied up in the exchanges, and investors cannot get to their own Ethereum because there's a problem with their wallets. So I don't like the technology of Ethereum. I still don't, and I've been selling it for that reason. But even though that's the case, Ethereum has gone up overnight, and overnight it did go up 1.83%. So I got stopped out of my trades. I do use hard stops. I never use just soft stops, if you want to call it that. I use hard stops, which means I actually put them in the system, and I get taken out to minimize my loss. So I've only had small losses of $4 and $13.30, but again, really important to put stops in, hard stops, because the reality is markets can do anything, and you really want to be here for another day. So very important to put in hard stops. I never use soft stops at all. And sometimes I notice with cryptocurrency there aren't guaranteed stops, but in the foreign exchange market you can have guaranteed stops, where you have to pay a little bit more for a guaranteed stop rather than a natural stop, because sometimes the market can move down so quickly that it gets taken through your stop and they won't exercise that stop because it moves so quick. But if you have a guaranteed stop, they will, because you pay extra for that. Now, at the moment, I'm long EDO at 2.088, and it's currently priced at 2.3024. That's actually offsetting some of my other positions. I'm long Ripple as a trade, and I'm long SAN US as a trade, and I'm long EOS as a trade. I'll see how those go. I'll probably close those out today. When I'm doing a short trading position or a long trading position, I don't hold things generally any longer than 2 days. So that's pretty much it. I've had that on since yesterday. My overall profit's up about 60 US. I think it's only small, but it's still a profit. And I'll probably bank that today and start with a clear slate tomorrow. As I said before, I think Bitcoin is overbought, and I think with the forks being cancelled, I think Bitcoin is due to come down, because it actually has gone up 3,000 US in about a month. So to me, it still looks very, very pricey. We're still working on our model portfolio, and in that model portfolio at the moment, we've got Ripple, we've got a bit of Bitcoin, we've got Ambrosis, it's a food technology ICO, which we like very much, and we've got Zen Cash, which is a privacy coin, which has got end-to-end encryption. So we'll be working on that and working the percentages. We're generally working on percentages of Bitcoin being 60%, because it's still, still the poster child, if you want to call it that, and everyone knows Bitcoin. And it will still go up just simply because of that. And when the sheep do get into this market, they will buy Bitcoin. So we're working off 55% Bitcoin, 60%, and the rest altcoins. Of those altcoins, obviously Ripple takes a higher weighting. So possibly Ripple, 20, 30%, something like that. And then you just have the residue in your altcoins that you like, or what we particularly like. It's up to you. Crypto news, as you know, the hard fork was cancelled yesterday, but then someone's come through an operation called BitPico, which I don't know who they are, but they've actually said they're going to go ahead with SegWit Witness 2, which is interesting, because don't forget that actually increases the meg size for Bitcoin, and it also separates the signatures so that the blocks have more time, 4 times capability of adding more information with the separation of the signatures. But the thing is, they've decided they're actually going to go ahead with the fork. So that's really very interesting. So it's we just have to see, because obviously, this crowd, BitPico, controls a third of the Bitcoin's hash rate, and basically, if they do go ahead with it, it's going to be even more controversial. Don't forget, this whole SegWit 2, SegWit Witness 2 times, it's been such a controversial thing. It's been going for 3 years now, and there's been ongoing debate between the developers and the miners and all the communities on different sides, whether we should have more RAM, more meg, MB 1 to 2, whether we should have separation of what transactional information gets put into blocks or not. So it just goes on and on and on, this whole thing, which is getting a bit over the top, I have to say. So if this crowd goes ahead with the fork, it's going to make it even more interesting, because then there's going to be more Bitcoins out there. And the reality is, what's the market going to use is the real Bitcoin. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, seriously. And the truth of the matter is, if they use the existing Bitcoin, BTC is the code, then, the existing Bitcoin's got all the problems, and the new coins are trying to be bought out to solve those problems. But if people keep using the original Bitcoin, it's only got 1 meg, so it's got problems with how much data it can store on the blocks. The blocks are getting full, so the miners have problems in processing transactions. Because of that, they'll increase their rate that they charge you to put a transaction through. And again, anyone should try the technology. Anyone can try this technology. You can go and buy Bitcoin, do a transaction, see how long it takes you to do it. Go and buy some Ripple, do a transaction, see how long it takes you to do it. Go and buy Ethereum and do a transaction and see how long it takes you to do it. All the people that try to put Ripple down, they should literally buy themselves, get themselves some wallets, and just see how long it takes to transact Bitcoin, which could take up to 3 or 4 hours. Ethereum could take up to, half an hour, and Ripple is like a second. It's because Ethereum and Bitcoin rely on miners to validate and pass the transactions through the chain, through the blockchain. Now, Ripple doesn't have that problem. Ripple has their own exchange. They don't have to rely on miners. The coin is pre-mined and they don't have that problem. That's why they can process things immediately. The problem is the more people that are reliant, the more cryptocurrencies are reliant on miners, the more problem there's going to be that there won't be enough miners, and the miners will basically switch to the highest paying person that's going to pay them their fee. Now, we've seen that with an ICO that we did, Neuromation. Neuromation said they want to pay the miners more than what Bitcoin pay them, and Ethereum for the coin, for their mining, basically transacting and validating the transactions through the network and through the blockchain. And the reality is Neuromation pays more than Bitcoin and Ethereum, which are being paid, they're being paid the miners $7 to $8 a day. Then that's even going to be more of an issue for Bitcoin and Ethereum, because it's going to slow up their transactions, what gets processed, and there'll be a long queuing process, and then transactions will take forever to actually go through, which means if you're using Bitcoin to buy something at the supermarket or anything else, you're not going to want to wait for half an hour, 3 hours for that transaction to go through. So it is a real issue for both Bitcoin and Ethereum. Going forward, just got a lot to go through here, and there's so much going on. The cancellation of the SegWit 2 times would have caused a lot of problems in the market. Some people were actually long BT1 and BT2, which are the coins, SegWit coins, and the reality is people lost a lot of money because BT2, as you know, went down from $1,000 down to about 140 US, and now it's lower overnight, 125. So I've read a couple of the communication channels, and some people lost up to 100,000 US, which is a lot of money. Very bad. I've never seen anything like this where they just suspend something and people just get caught. And that's what happens with markets. You've got to have stop losses in place no matter what. Because something like this can happen and you can get absolutely blown away, and you've got to maintain and protect your capital. Otherwise you're out. You can't trade anymore. There's a lot of news which I do post. There was some trader in the US being done for fraud, trying to conceal Bitcoin profits or something. There's a movie star going to use Bitcoin for a week to see how it goes. Don't forget, South Korea is really big on Bitcoin and all the alt currencies. They trade heaps. So on BitThumb, they trade lots and lots of alt currencies. There's another blockchain being launched to start up ICO, something Crown. There's some other things. What else we got? Ethereum still got the big problem with its security, which is a real hassle, but it's still going up a little bit. Israel security authorities think that, it's a real concern, all these ICO cryptocurrencies. Some people are saying you should diversify more, which is fair enough. Bitcoin was, at one stage, had 60% of the market. It's probably down to about 55. Citigroup thinks that governments will eventually issue state-sponsored digital currencies. Portugal, the bank director believes that it isn't a currency, which is interesting because lots of people think it is a currency. Governments don't know how to classify cryptocurrency at all. You've got Ethereum wallet bugs still there. 280 million from what I've seen. I've seen 150 million or 280 or 300. It's still frozen and people cannot get their money, which is a real problem. And some of that money is ICO money, initial coin offering money, which is a real hassle. The Utrust did a very successful pre-ICO auction for its coin. Interesting thing about this one is they're effectively telling people they've got to hold their funds for 12 months, so you can't actually sell it and you can't do anything with it. I don't like that lockup clause, so I'm surprised at people that it's been so successful when there's a lockup clause. You can't do anything until 12 months is up, which really would bother me a lot as an investor, because anything can happen in 12 months. So apparently US investors are not allowed to buy or sell this, buy or sell the cryptocurrency from this ICO, because there's some lockup clause for 12 months. I haven't looked at the details of it, but it's still I don't think that's great. Now, altcoins are going up because the fork, seems to be over, but there's, as I said, there's that crowd that want to do it, which is going to make life very interesting. The German regulators, again, think they're warning on ICOs. There's numerous risks. So we've got lots of, governments. Some like it, some don't. Some are, negative, some are positive. Quite amazing. You've got Japan positive. You've got South Korea positive. Obviously, China's not. You've got Germans worried about the Portuguese, Israel, America are worried about it. Australia doesn't know how to deal with it. People don't know whether it's a commodity, whether it's a currency, cryptocurrency. It's a new asset class, effectively. And I was reading something the other day. It's the newest asset class. There hasn't been a new asset class for 150 years. So cryptocurrency is that new asset class. There's something about quantum computers that they will, in 5 years' time, be able to access people's private keys, which is going to make it very interesting. So, but look, 5 years' time is 5 years' time, honestly. They can't access them at the moment, the private keys, but if they could now, we'd all be worried. But certainly, if they can access them in 5 years' time, well, that's fair enough. The technology will be updated by then anyway. And that's interesting because that should be very bullish for Ripple, because Ripple basically have their own exchange. So if the exchanges go down, they're not affected by that. You can actually transact directly with Ripple. So you have more protection with Ripple, and even if you lost your private key, you can actually go to Ripple, and so there's actually more protection. But if someone gets into an exchange, as we've seen with Mt. Gox, where in 2014 300 mil of Bitcoin, I think it was 400 mil of Bitcoin was stolen, which is going to be worth more money now. You've lost your funds, where you've got more security with Ripple because they don't need an exchange to exist. Basically, they have their own exchange, and their crypto is not mined, pretty much. So again, Ethereum's a problem. It is rising, but they've still got this issue with this wallet and this multi-signature issue, and the coins in their system are just locked and no one can access them, which is pretty bad, and they haven't fixed that yet. Zimbabwe and Venezuela, again, as I've mentioned before, are using Bitcoin, and because there's been a total collapse of the currency in Zimbabwe and Venezuela particularly, Zimbabwe, one Bitcoin now is worth 13,000 US. Now, in the market, in normal markets, US and Hong Kong markets and whatnot, Bitcoin's at 7,200. So there is an arbitrage there. You could buy Bitcoin in the US and Hong Kong and sell it in Zimbabwe at 13,000 US. It's a huge arbitrage, and make yourself $5,000 a coin. Now, there's this fellow, what's his name, Tim Draper, I think, who is a very well-known investor, has made a lot of money out of Bitcoin. Basically said that in 5 years' time, these things are going to take over fiat currency or normal currency. So that's pretty interesting in itself. I think he's probably right about that. I think that could happen. So just going forward, we've got lots of ICOs coming out. And I looked at Neuromation. I do like Neuromation. I'm going to invest in Neuromation myself. I think it's a very, very smart ICO, and it's around 30 cents Ethereum. Eventually it's going to have its own blockchain, which means it'll have its own coin, and it won't have to rely on Ethereum technology, which I don't particularly like. But it is on artificial intelligence, and I think that has a lot of legs. I really like that ICO, so I'm going to have just a small investment in that. I only ever do things small, 2% of my portfolio, because, if it goes belly up, then at least I know I'm not going to lose a lot of money. But the upside can always be huge in cryptocurrencies. As you know, you don't need a lot of money to make money in cryptocurrency. You only need a small position to actually make money. So just going through the biggest gainers in crypto in the last 24 hours, it's still in the small stocks, as you can see. Rustbit, or whatever it's called, is only 10 cents, but it's up 337%. This one, Terra Nova, is a bit bigger. And you'll just go through. A lot of these are small coins. They're under $1 or even under 10 cents. And they just rev them up pretty much. They bid them up and, ramp them up and bid them down just to make profits. So, there may not be any legs behind these. Sometimes if I have time, I'll get to have a look at these. But, again, this Terra Nova would interest me, though, because it's at $6.12. But the trading volume's tiny. I mean, seriously, look at the trading volume on these. You'd only ever look at something, actually, I'd only probably look at something if it's got a trading volume of something reasonable like this one here, Raiden Network Token, or this one, but still, the small trading volume you can basically pump up anything. If you look at the losers in crypto, 24 in 24 hours, they're off about 50 to 20% or so. Again, it's all small stuff as well. The volumes are tiny, so, again, it doesn't really, nothing stands out for me there. Again, now we're looking at the exchanges. BitThumb yesterday it's the Korean exchange, did most of the volume compared to Bitfinex, which is the Hong Kong exchange. As you can see, $1 billion and just under $1 billion. And they are trading Bitcoin Cash. They seem to really like Bitcoin Cash. That did go up overnight quite nicely. They trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, Quantum. Now that Quantum, again, there was a story about Quantum about bringing out computers and programming where they could actually break codes on private keys in 5 years' time. So maybe that's why it's pushed up. That has been going up in the last couple of days, but today on Bitfinex, it's down. So on the Korean exchange, it's trading at a premium, and that's what we do find sometimes. So you'll see here that Bitcoin on Bitfinex is at 7269. On Bitcoin on the Korean exchange is actually a little bit higher, and Bitcoin Cash is slightly higher as well. So Litecoin's been doing pretty well. They have been buying a lot of Litecoin, and Litecoin got put on Coin One as well, another Korean exchange just recently. And what else we got? IOTA. IOTA has had a big bounce, went from about 36 cents to about 54, 55 cents. And pretty much, they're buying Bitcoin, obviously Bitcoin Cash on Bittrex, which that's $700. And if you look at the Korean exchange, 705, just small arbitrage there between the two. Other financial markets, Dow was down over 100 points on tax cut delays. I don't like the Dow at all. I think that there's a real risk that this thing comes down quickly from here. I think it's so overbought, it's not funny. In 08, this thing was at 6,500. Now it's at 2,462. Just amazing. All other markets are down, from anything from 0.5% to 1%. The Asian markets didn't do much. Aussie's below 77. Nothing really stands out there for me. US Euro, US Yen has come down. It was about 116. I think the US Yen at this stage is a sell. I think it's too high. Oil, gold is still under 1,300. When it's really bullish, it's above 1,300. What else we got here? Baltic Index. This is something you should keep an eye on. It tells you the growth in the economy worldwide. It's a shipping index, and basically the more shipping that gets done, obviously the more exports and more imports people are consuming. That's quite high, and with that, interest rates should be a lot higher than where they are. And interest rates are always a negative for the equity market. Don't forget that, because equities, they're a perpetuity cash flow, and they value on interest rates, and lower interest rates, the higher that cash flow, thus the higher the equity price. So basically, you see that the yields here are really going up. 7 basis points in an interest rate market is high. France is up 7 basis points, 6 Spanish, 5 German, and those yields are pretty high. So you can see a real push up in those yields. If you see a push up in those yields, the equity market will come down very much. And looks like all the tech stocks are down as well, and they all got bid up like lots. So the tech stocks are down as well. So basically, the delay on the corporate tax rate doesn't surprise, because I think Donald Trump's full of it. 2019, a lot of weak sectors, technical, material, industrial, and Trump's going to visit Beijing. That'll be interesting. And just a few of the stats there. Cheers. Thank you. I hope this helps. Bye for now.